But let's start with Curt Schilling, who earlier today was on Outkick the Coverage, and he was discussing why he missed the cut for the 2021 Baseball Hall of Fame class.
Are you, in your opinion, in the Hall of Fame if you have never publicly made a single political statement, left or right wing or independent or anything other than like, hey, I'm Curt Schilling, I play baseball.
Absolutely,
that's all I comment
unequivocally guaranteed, yes.
Okay, so there's a couple of different layers to it. The first part is, I think he might be right, but I'm not sure that he's right. I'll make this statement, and we can always come back to it because it doesn't relate necessarily to Schilling, but does relate to the voters who did not put Clemens, did not put Bonds, did not put these steroid guys in. Right? I mean, look, from relationships to work to school to any other awards, the idea of I was a Hall of Famer and then I did something bad, I should still be recognized for all the great I did, even though I cheated the sport, is ridiculous. I was totally faithful for 15 years and then I was not. Try that with her. But I was always a good, try that with her. Try that. See how that works out for you. Tell me another place in business where we celebrate something. Turns out it was with the help of something illegal, right? Do you guys remember the movie Quiz Show? I'm not even going to ask Bayer because there's no chance. I'm going to ask. Okay, but I'm wondering if Ramos remembers the movie Quiz Show. You remember the movie Quiz Show?
I do.
Yeah, it was a movie. Do you remember what it was about?
It was about quiz shows in the 50s that somebody cheated on.
Yes. It was based upon something in 1958. NBC had a popular quiz show called 21. Right? And the players were transported from a secure bank vault to the studio. And Herb Stempel was the reigning champion who correctly answered question after question after question. However, the network and the program's corporate sponsor, was Geritol, I believe, at the time. When they found out that Stempel's approval rating started to level out, that the show would benefit from some new talent, so they found some new talent and they gave him the answers. Do we celebrate people who had the answers to quiz shows and made money? And then we said, well, look, he was the greatest quiz show contestant of all time. Yeah, after he did have the answers for some of them. No, we did not. I mean, look, Tom Brady is the most successful quarterback of all time. And I don't believe for one second that the deflated footballs, which may or may not have been something that he was a part of. I mean, by the way, still looking for that report. Remember the NFL after Deflategate? They were supposed to spend a year investigating the inflation levels of football. Notice that those findings were never released. Why do you think they would never be released? But even with that, people will still take shots at Brady. That had nothing to do with his performance. It's harder to throw a football when there's less air in it. Easier to carry it. Okay. Aaron Rodgers famously has said he wanted his ball overinflated. Why? It's easier to throw if you have big enough hands. This isn't like performance-enhancing drugs. If those guys were on PEDs, they're on steroids, we would look completely differently at what Tom Brady is doing right now at 43 years old. Imagine if Tom Brady was 43 years old and he was moving better and throwing better than he ever had before. That's what Bonds and Clemens did after they started to fade because they used steroids. So no, you don't put them in. It's the dumbest conversation I've ever had. And I hear really smart people say really dumb, wow, everybody was doing it. What are we, 5? Like Johnny down the street is doing it, so that makes it okay. But in regards to Curt Schilling, it is interesting what snapshot of Schill you get. Because I will tell you that there was a good portion of time when he was with the Arizona Diamondbacks and they won. When he was with the Philadelphia Phillies and they couldn't win big. When he was with the Boston Red Sox, where he was the number one get as an interview. The number one get. Why? Schill. He'd say whatever he wanted to say. But because of what happened with this video game stuff, because of what happened politically, because of who he aligned himself with, because of there was a time in baseball where he was seen as Mr. Red Light. Hey, he's one guy when the red light's on, one guy when he's not. Look, should it absolutely be this way? Probably not. But life is a popularity contest. It just is. And a lot of people don't like Curt Schilling. It's not even the politics. It's really not. I would guess Tom Brady is a Republican. I would guess that he voted for Donald Trump definitely once, maybe twice. Does anybody care? No, because it's the way in which he handles himself. We do this. We constantly do this thing where we associate what side you're on means we like you or dislike you based upon the time. No, that's not it. It's how you tell us what side you're on and why you're on it and what your affiliations are. Right? There are plenty of obnoxious Democrats. Obnoxious that people do not like. It has nothing to do with the fact that they're Democrats. They're just obnoxious. There are obnoxious Republicans, and the people don't like them. And then there's everybody else. It's like, I think what I think, and you think what you think, and we can disagree, and all right. Who won? Okay, we move on. You don't like me? No, I don't like you. It's not, I don't like you because you're conservative. I don't like you because I don't like you. Right? Period. That's it. And I actually, anytime I've been around Schill, I like him. And he's actually a really hard sell to the Hall of Fame. Because what made Curt Schilling great, and I would have personally voted him in. Okay? I'm not a Hall of Fame voter. Okay? I don't know why some people didn't put him in, but him coming out like, well, I'm going to take my ball and I'm going to go to the Veterans Committee with people that really matter. Like, that's really going to, again, that's Schilling being Schilling. That, again, people don't dislike him because it's of him and how he handles it. Had he simply come out and said, I'm sure I'm a hard sale. I'm sure my numbers aren't the numbers of the 300-game winners, aren't these stat accumulators or whatever. But every team I was ever on, including the Arizona Diamondbacks, including the Boston Red Sox that had Pedro Martinez, the Diamondbacks had Randy Johnson, those were great pitchers. Those are Hall of Fame pitchers. But you know what? When a game's on the line, and when they need one game to win, who do they want to have the ball? Curt Schilling. That's the answer. That's the answer. All he has to say is bloody sock game. Why do we play sports, right? Why do we play baseball? You got to have one guy who can take the ball in the biggest game ever and win you the damn game. And that's Curt Schilling. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that argument. There's no political argument about it, but you only make it easier on yourself when it's hard to love you. It's hard to even like you. Basically, we had the opposite conversation about Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is going into the Hall of Fame. All this conversation, it's like Eli Manning. Do you really think they're keeping Eli Manning out of the Hall of Fame? I think it's the stupidest conversation. I've said this before, hosting Cowherd and hosting this show. When Eli Manning was benched and ultimately retired, there was is he a Hall of Fame? Of course he's going to the Hall of Fame. It's the stupidest conversation I've ever heard. Of course he is. He won 2 Super Bowls. He was the quarterback of the team that took down the only undefeated team in my lifetime. He won, and he played best in the biggest of games. He's a Hall of Famer. Come on. Does it make him? Should he be? No. I mean, should you be? It should be the top 1% of 1%, like Favre and Rodgers and Brady and Breeze, I guess, too, maybe. I don't know. Breeze just stats are just so overwhelming, and he did win a Super Bowl, but, I'd never seen him as, but okay. But you start letting other guys in, and they have had other guys in, like Joe Montana, Hall of Famer. Some of the other guys like, yeah, okay. But you get the benefit of the doubt when everybody likes you. Everybody likes Phillip Rivers. Right? Phillip Rivers retires, and he puts gall darn it or something in the press release. Who does that? Phillip Rivers. That's who he is. He's an immensely likable, lovable human being, and that gives you benefit of the doubt. Why? At the end of the day, life is a popularity contest as much as anything else. You may not think it matters, but it absolutely matters to human beings. And those are human beings with votes. And they can't simply go, I look at stats, this is what I do. They take the whole picture. You take the whole picture. And Schilling based upon the stats is a hard one. It just is. It's a hard one. You know? So I think the lesson to be learned here is, and this is like we never have this conversation about Kaepernick. No one ever talks about he wasn't very good for a good portion of time. And Curt, like up until the time in which he decided to protest, he wasn't a beloved or even he lost his job as the Niners quarterback because he was so aloof, so quiet, walked around with the headphones on, which again, to any other guy at work, maybe in the NFL, that's not that big a deal. When you're the quarterback of the Niners and things start to go bad, you have to be the guy who lightens up every room, doesn't bring it all down. Likability, popularity, it matters. It absolutely matters. And Schilling saying that shouldn't be part of the equation. Actually, Schilling saying politics is somehow part of it. Come on. The politics is an easy way for people to point out just how unlikable at times Curt Schilling has been, which is interesting because there was a portion of time, and I think, Beyer, you can nod your head to this one. There was a point in time in which Curt Schilling was like the get interview in Major League Baseball because he was honest, he was entertaining, he was great, and he was a great player.
Yeah. He did a weekly hit in Boston and was must listen to radio.
Must listen to. Like his career, his life path is a lot like that of Bob Knight's. Like if I say Bob Knight to Ryan Music, who's 28 years old, right? All he saw of Bob Knight was maybe a little bit of Texas Tech and then ESPN Bob Knight and Grumpy Old Man, right? When Bob Knight was in his prime, he could have run for governor. He was beloved. He was hilarious, right? But then he got too much. People loved too much of the Bob Knight thing, and it spurred and he stayed too long. And by the time he did it, it was bad. It was bad. And the whole image of Bob Knight is based upon what point in time did you see him? In 1984, he was the Olympic team coach. He was incredibly respected, beloved. He was way more so than Mike Krzyzewski, even when Duke started winning, America's coach. But there was a lack of understanding, likability, softening over time. Instead, it became harder. And that's Curt Schilling. Schilling was likable, funny, affable. He was a great player, he was a leader. He was the go-to pitcher, teams with other Hall of Famers. But he just became a guy who's hard to like. And then when you factor in, he really is on the border if you actually look at the numbers. It's easy to keep him out. And then it just becomes confirmation bias. You're like, see, you keep him out, he makes it about politics. F that guy.